of the cessation of dukkha. Yota sa yeva tanhaya asesa viraga nirodho. It is the remainderless fading away and cessation of that very craving. Chago, its relinquishment. Bhatinisago, letting go. Mutti, release. Analayo, without any attachment. Idanko panabhika veduka nirodha gamani patipada ariya satchang. This because is a noble truth of the way of practice leading to the cessation of dukkha. Ayameva ariyo attangiko mago. It is just this noble eightfold path, Sayatidhang, which is as follows: Samma Ditti, right view; Samma Sankappo, right intention; Samma Vacha, right speech; Samma Kammanto, right action; Samma Ajivo, right livelihood; Samma Vayamo, right effort; Samma Sati, right mindfulness; Samma Samadhi, right concentration. Idang dukkang ariya satchanti me bhikkhave pubeyananu sute sudamme suchakung udapadinyana udapadi panya udapadi yaloko udapadi. Because in regard to things unheard of before, vision arose, insight arose, discernment arose, knowledge arose, light arose. This is the noble truth of dukkha. Tanko panidang dukkang ariya satchang parinyayanti. Now this noble truth of dukkha should be completely understood. Tanko panidang dukkang ariya satchang parinyatanti. Now this noble truth of dukkha has been completely understood. Idang dukkha samudayo ariya satchanti me bhikkhave pubeyananu sute sudamme sujakung udapadinyana udapadi panya udapadi vidya udapadi aloko udapadi. Because in regard to things unheard of before, vision arose, insight arose, discernment arose, knowledge arose, light arose. This is the noble truth of the cause of dukkha. Tanko panidang dukkha samudayo ariya satchang pahatabanti. Now this cause of dukkha should be abandoned. Tanko panidang dukkha samudayo ariya satchang pahinanti. Now this cause of dukkha has been abandoned. Idang dukkha nirodho ariya satchanti me bhikkhave pubeyananu sute sudamme sujakung udapadi jnanang udapadi panya udapadi vidya udapadi aloko udapadi. Because in regard to things unheard of before, vision arose, insight arose, discernment arose, knowledge arose, light arose. This is the noble truth of the cessation of dukkha. Tanko panidang dukkha nirodho Ariya Satchang Satikata Bhante. Now the cessation of dukkha should be experienced directly. Tanko panidang dukkha nirodho Ariya Satchang Satikatante. Now the cessation of dukkha has been experienced directly. Idang dukkha nirodha gamani patipada Ariya Satchanti me bhikkhave. Sute sudamme suchakong udapadi jnanang udapadi panya udapadi vidya udapadi aloko udapadi. Because in regard to things unheard of before, vision arose, insight arose, discernment arose, knowledge arose, light arose. This is the noble truth of the way of practice leading to the cessation of dukkha. Tanko panidang dukkha nirodha gamani patipada Ariya Satchang pavetabhanti. Now this way of practice leading to the cessation of dukkha should be developed. Tanko panidang dukkha nirodha gamani patipada Ariya Satchang pavitanti. Now this way of practice leading to the cessation of dukkha has been developed. Yavaki vancha me bhikkhave ime sucitto su Ariya Satche sue vanti parivattam dawata sakaram yatha bhutang jnana dasanang nasu visuddhang ahosi. As long, bhikkhus, as my knowledge and understanding, as it actually is, of these Four Noble Truths, with their 3 phases and 12 aspects, was not entirely pure. Nevatavahang bhikkhave sadevake loke samarake sabrahmake sasamana brahmaniya pajaya sadeva manu saya anuttarang samma sambodhing abhisambuddho pajanyasing. Did I not claim, bhikkhus, in this world of devas, Mara and Brahma, amongst mankind with its priests and renunciants, kings and commoners, an ultimate awakening to unsurpassed perfect enlightenment, Gyato Chakome Ariya Satche sue vanti parivattang dawada sakara yatha bhutang jnana dasanang suvisuddhang ahosi. But when, bhikkhus, my knowledge and understanding, as it actually is, of these Four Noble Truths, with their 3 phases and 12 aspects, was indeed entirely pure. Atahang bhikkhave sadevake loke samarake sabrahmake sasamana brahmaniya pajaya sadeva manu saya anuttarang samma sambodhing abhisambuddho pajanyasing. Then indeed did I claim, bhikkhus, in this world of devas, Mara and Brahma, amongst mankind with its priests and renunciants, kings and commoners, an ultimate awakening to unsurpassed perfect enlightenment, Jnanancha panameddasanang udapadi. Now knowledge and understanding arose in me. Akupa me vimutti ayamanti majjati natti dani punabhavoti. My release is unshakable. This is my last birth. There won't be any further becoming. As I mentioned, as I mentioned at the beginning of the evening, there's an opportunity for members of the lay community and our overnight guests to formally refresh or initiate the determination to live on the 8 precepts. So the lay guests who are staying overnight are automatically living that way when they're here, whether it's for one night or for several months. But yeah, members of the broader community who are just coming for the evening, if they wish to determine these precepts, and it's just for the night, just until dawn. So it's not a long commitment, but just until dawn, and it's a way of living, as the Buddha said, as the Arahants do, as the enlightened beings do, even if it's just for one day and one night. So this was established as a pattern of practice at the time of the Buddha, so that even once a week people could come and spend time either in the monastery or with the monks and nuns and live in this way. And so if people are wishing to participate in that, it begins on page 131 in the dark brown volume, 131, and the form, it's got 3 different forms of the beginning of it on that page, and this is for a group from a monk, so it's the top one. And so traditionally it begins with 3 bows, but if people would prefer to, if they don't feel comfortable with bowing, that's fine. And so it's using this form, the Mayam Bante. And so those people who are more familiar with this, maybe be more sure in your voices, and those of you who wish to join in but feel maybe a little bit it's still new, you can sort of follow along. Okay, and then I'll walk you through it as we go through as well. So this is entirely optional, so I'll just see if anybody initiates this. And now you jump to page 133, top of the page, and follow along. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Now this is line by line, repeat after me. Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi. Dhammaṃ saranang gacchāmi. Sanghaṃ saranang gacchāmi. Dutiyampi buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi. Dutiyampi dhammaṃ saranang gacchāmi. Dutiyampi sanghaṃ saranang gacchāmi. Tatyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Tatyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Tatyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Tisarana gamanang nittitang. So now as we go through the precepts, I'll do the Pali, and then you recite the Pali, then I do the English, then you recite the English. Bānātipātā veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi. I undertake the precept to refrain from taking the life of any living creature. Adinādāna veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi. I undertake the precept to refrain from taking that which is not given. Brahmacharya veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi. I undertake the precept to refrain from any intentional sexual activity. Musavada veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi. I undertake the precept to refrain from lying. Sura meraya majapamadatana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi. I undertake the precept to refrain from consuming intoxicating drink and drugs which lead to carelessness. Vikala bhojana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi. I undertake the precept to refrain from eating at inappropriate times. Nacha gita vadita visuka dasana mala ganda vilepana dharana mandana vibhusanatana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi. I undertake the precept to refrain from entertainment, beautification, and adornment. Uchasayana mahasayana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi. I undertake the precept to refrain from lying on a high or luxurious sleeping place. Imani atta sikkhapadani samadhiyāmi. Ye mani atta sikkhapadani silena sugatinyanti silena bhoga sampada silena nibbodhinyanti tasama silang visotaye. So if we could set up the Dhamma seat in the place that Lumpur Sucitto normally likes to offer talks. So Sam, if we can ask you to please move, also Alex, maybe also Hayden, maybe people back there, because the seat's going to be going in that bay. And thank you very much. Let me get out.
Bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Awakening, point to the word Buddha, Bodhi, often translated as awakening. The images of a lotus flower opening up. There's a line in the sutta, in the chanting, which says the Buddha awakens people like the sun awakening the lotus. So the sun shines and the lotus opens its petals. So it's a nice image to bear in mind, because this isn't really about information. Only the information is necessary to catalyze and support that opening, that waking. So it's the extraordinary teaching and transmission that tries to kind of get beyond words and ideas and dogmas and beliefs, and yet still use words and practices to generate this, catalyze this awakening, this opening. And most people, a lot of human activity is about not opening but closing, grabbing, filling, consuming, holding on. Not opening like the sun, like the lotus awakening, but more closing like a crab, holding on to things. So we have to decide whether you want to be a crab or a lotus, and what will bring that around. So one way in which this is give more details, are opening out of self, or out of our personal habits, personal perspectives, kind of a self-interest, but not in a way that's harmful, in a way that's beautiful and bright. Again, this is kind of a beautiful thing. And yet we see in the world in general, so often people are operating out of self-interest, even those who are, supposedly governing countries and supposedly looking after their population. In the societies, you find out actually a lot of it is self-interest, accumulation of power, status, wealth, influence. Awakening, opening, coming out of self-interest is what a radical possibility. Transformative. And this is what Buddha means. So in this Buddha presents a way, and the way is flavoured, or coloured, or made interesting by it being the way out of suffering, stress. That gives us a lot of self-interest, but a self-interest that eventually begins to recognise the most valuable thing is to have less self-interest. That's going to make me feel better. Less holding on, less views and opinions, less power, status. And so but it starts off just recognising, this quality of dukkha and stress that occurs not just through pleasure and pain, but by holding on, by doing what crabs do. The crabs we hold on to body, we hold on to feeling, we hold on to ideas, we hold on to possessions, and so on. And so that sense of just recognising this holding on creates tension, stress, and fights against the natural law of things, which is that things can't be held on to. Things do change, things do pass away, things do arise that we don't want to have arise. Things pass away that we like to keep hold of. The very bodies do the same things. They change in ways that we don't particularly want, and they take on forms we may not particularly admire, and they get sick, and then they pass away. And that's the law of nature. But the response to that is to, rather than hold on to that body, to be able to generate qualities that are able to maintain openness and allow this process, even of birth and death, to move without holding on to qualities within that, to this feeling, form, sensations, perceptions, one's ability to do and make things happen. We hold on to the ability to do and make things happen, and as we get frustrated because we can't always make things happen, things don't go as we want them to, and as increasingly one's strength and diminishes, then your ability to make things happen and change things grows less. So this faculty of volition and ability to do things is something we only have on loan for a period of time. And then we become unable or very limited, disabled. So while we have it on loan, this period of time, like we have this body on loan for a period of time, then it says, well, can you generate that intention, that volition, that inclination, that effort that's required to support opening? This is what's going to serve us best in the long run. So when, for example, we keep the 8 precepts even for a night, it's a sense of aligning to some set of values that are not particularly visionary, but they do both give us an ethical balance that keeps us in harmony with others. And also they do encourage us to relinquish our creature comforts. Not that these are necessarily harmful, but they are changeable. We can't always be dependent upon food, pleasures, entertainments, comforts. So the sense of aligning yourself to a set of values that just puts those energies, those volitions, those inclinations to one side. It doesn't mean that we deliberately cause ourselves harm, or starve, or fast even, but just check habit towards accumulation, sensuality. Saying, well, in the long run, this is going to do us the greatest service, because the kind of strengths and resilience that you cultivate just in maintaining precepts, just in maintaining resistance or a non-following of the inclination towards senses, which is inclination towards that which dies. And the Buddha felt this is actually the standard that unifies everyone, at least for one night, on the observance night. The bhikkhus, the nuns, anagarikas, lay people and so forth can all do this together. You don't have to be ordained, you don't have to be anybody that special or leadership role, but just anybody can try this. And in that way you align yourself to a standard that's very strong, resolute and respectable. And it's making a stand against the movement towards the senses. That's, you align yourself to it. You just tune into that. People have done this throughout the centuries. This is the way of the people who've moved beyond sensuality, moved beyond birth and death. Why not just tune into that? Place myself in that particular container. This is that quality of aligning to a way. You've got a certain reference point that you just tune into and watch, and notice the feelings that arise that either think, well, this is kind of a waste of time, or what's the point of this anyway, or it makes me feel uncomfortable. What's that? That is that which resists these, that which finds this. Is that reliable? Is that something that one can feel is going to cause opening? It's going to catalyse opening? No, it's going to catalyse holding on to the familiar, comfortable, the norm. Why don't I try something that causes me to let go and open up instead? And tune into that movement. And this is an example of the way. And there's a certain strength that comes from that. And it's said that in the Buddhist tradition they've begun to try to calculate how come this Buddha managed to generate the kind of, on his own, without any teachers, generate the capacity, catalyze the capacity to awakening, since nobody was showing him what to do, nobody told him what to do. How did he do it? He said, well, he must have practiced tuning in to a spiritual inquiry, spiritual direction over lifetimes, and building up what are called parami. Parami are very useful terms, very useful qualities, because everybody can do them. And you can do them when you're sick, when you're healthy, when you're busy, when you're young, when you're old, when you're working, when you're not working, and so you can cultivate them all the time. So rather than just the limited periods that one can spend sitting quietly as a form of cultivation, Parami says, no, you can do this all the time. It's not just when you sit quietly, it's when you're active, when you're talking. It'll give you a way in which you can keep tuning into how you open up, how you let go. And this is a very useful form teaching device. Even in monastic life, which is fairly quiet, fairly serene, there's generally periods of time which gets very active. And you have to work hard when lots of people come. People are coming and going. People get sick. There's obviously issues that arise and disappointments and frustrations, misunderstandings. You've got to deal with life like anybody else does. And if you keep thinking, oh, this is getting in the way of my meditation practice, I can't practice here because of this, because of that, because I've got to do this, because I've got to look after that, because I've got to go here because there's too many people, then you're aligning yourself to something that's going to cause suffering and stress, and falling into the idea that one can hold on even to a meditation practice is something to kind of get and have. Doesn't mean these meditation times or times of silence aren't useful, but we learn how to see this as one phase or one aspect of an unbroken whole of cultivating parami. What are the parami? In one tradition, the Theravada tradition, they calculated these as 10 cardinal virtues, you could say. First, generosity, which is an opening gesture. You consider others, and something you enjoy is that sense of opening beyond your own self-interest, and somebody else giving. Everybody can do it. People enjoy doing it. It's a free will thing. If it isn't free will, it isn't giving. And ideally, a giving can be material things, shelter, hospitality, advice, wise advice, medicines, care for the sick, anything that causes that opening to the welfare of another. And so it gives us a sense in which once one cultivates the dana, then you suddenly get a change of view. The more you cultivate it, it's no longer mine interest, but our. The me, letter M, turns upside down and becomes we. That's a pretty valuable transformation in itself. Enter the territory of mutuality. But so the Buddha, in his practices, seems to develop this to extraordinary degrees, giving away his own life at times, in this period of lifetimes. And the theme of the parami means that this is something you can cultivate not just in our daily life, but actually throughout lifetimes. So it really opens up the whole perspective. We tend again to kind of think ourselves as being a historical self, a historical person. When I'm born, and when I die, and that's the end of it. And I've got to try and get everything done inside this, how many years, I don't know. And that creates a certain pressure and tension. So we won't forget that idea. What about if this thing doesn't end at the time of death? What happens if it keeps rolling on? Where did it come from anyway? Did it just pop up out of nowhere? Maybe, this wasn't the first time round. Maybe it's like, going to sleep and waking up and forgetting. And you have another birth. Since we didn't pop up out of nowhere, it seems very likely we don't just suddenly stop. We kind of move into another wave. The wave goes into a trough and then comes up as another wave. Seems quite possible to me. But the theme is that whether that's true or not, even in this very life, you can cultivate dana, generosity, and feel a sense of, this gives me a purpose. So people who've helped others, people who've invented things, people who've worked for the welfare of others, doctors, scientists, inventors, so forth. There's always some aspect of sense of a greater than myself. And you can cultivate this, and then, suddenly, that does help to put things in perspective, because actually it's not just that it's a noble ideal, but it's also just a fact. I don't live independently of everyone else. it takes few people to get you born, few people to educate you. You're living in contact with other people. And certainly for myself, once I entered this particular training, it became very apparent. One is living dependent upon the support, generosity, care, intelligence, effort of hundreds, if not thousands of people. And being guided by people who've been guided by others, and who've been guided by others, you're actually inheriting the vast resources of a living tradition. So there's an enormous amount of that's been given. It's not the place to start hanging on to me and mine. You tune in, you start doing the dana yourself however you can. I can serve, I can wash up, I can, I can give something. Everybody gives something. And then it makes, that makes life more manageable. Of course, that's just the first, and this sila, virtue, morality, means you're giving, but also you're inclining towards having a moral compass to steer by. And that again is about mutuality. I don't harm others, to others as to myself. I don't lie to others. And it's said, throughout all his various incarnations, the Buddha wanted the Buddha to be whatever else he did, whether he was an animal, a prince, merchant, whatever he was, he didn't lie. He didn't kill and didn't lie. Because to lie means you're not tuning in to truth, obviously. And if you're lying to others, the likelihood is you're lying to yourself. There can be no proper alignment. You haven't got a sense of veracity. This actually is truthful and harmless. And it's really useful to keep working around this ethical sense, ethical sensitivity. Not just a series of do's and don'ts, but a sense of how does this affect other people. How does this affect other people in the long run? If I keep acting this way, how does it affect people in the long run? How does it model? How do I model things? Now, if I have a glass of sherry in the evening, maybe that's not such of a problem, but if it encourages others to also do the same, or in fact have a glass of sherry, then have another one and a pint of beer afterwards, there's no sense of somebody's modelling restraint on that, then in a way one isn't giving the right kind of guidance to others by modelling it. So we kind of contemplate the privilege to uphold standards that are life-affirming, blameless, do not cause conflict, do not harm anyone and any creatures. Kamma, renunciation, learning to recognize that of all the things that make us happy, the happiest things is having a peaceful heart, comfortable heart, and sensuality just doesn't do that. However much power, status, wealth one gets, it doesn't make you contented. And so renunciation says, why don't you put that aside and instead generate art qualities, spiritual qualities instead. And those three then really set you very firmly on the path to awakening. There's a whole list of these which could be quite a long time to go through. But just to bear them in mind, we have discernment, absolutely necessary to be able to track and register what one's doing, where the mind is going, going off, when it's centered, when it's balanced. Energy, be able to gather one's potential for effort into purposeful directions. We all have energy as a natural quality. We all know we have energy. We also need to bear in mind that we only have so much. You know, the storage is going down every day. There's a little less. What are you doing with it? So when you cultivate energy, it means you start to limit energy, putting energy into things that don't do anyone any good. So you gather it together, gather it and stabilize it. And activities are just restless, fidgeting, and so forth. You put those aside, and this energy then gathers and accumulates, and it gives tremendous strength to the mind. And it's an important quality to cultivate. It doesn't mean forcing it, it means not wasting it. And then it's available, then you can apply it. And something to recognize. We have so many ways in which we realize our energy goes out into sights and sounds and occupations and things we read, all take energy. It's not just physical movement, it's movement of the mind, movement of the heart, movement of intention, movement of inclination, all uses energy. So if you kind of spend an hour or two just browsing on your phone, that still uses energy. It draws it out. And people, don't recognize necessarily this is a precious and limited resource. If we gather it together and put energy where it's valuable, and both in terms of stabilizing the mind, fulfilling one's duties with a sense of purpose, steadying, not about force, it's about steady, purposeful energy to do what's necessary. And then the ability also to cultivate energy by learning how to rest, not distract, how to say no, not take on more than one can, but to gather energy. When there's no energy, so it's time to rest. And let things gather again. When you have energy, don't waste it on either careless occupations or psychologies, psychological restlessness or guilt. You feel you've got to do all the time in order to be here. And certainly in our kind of culture, there's a lot of times the feeling that almost you've got to keep doing things, otherwise you won't be good enough. You'll be considered lazy or useless. Just time to stop and just use energy to strengthen the mind. That's going to be a lot more valuable for everyone if your own heart and mind are steady and stabilized than just by trying to run around doing all kinds of stuff. And we can apply it. Patience, enormously valuable parami. Ability to just keep going, steady, patience. And this one is almost extinct. Because generally the modern life is to not have to wait for a split second. Not instant is the best. Quicker is best. Everything's high speed, and the quicker is best. So that means your nervous system is constantly ratcheted up to the level of what's fastest. And this naturally is very destructive to the body. And if we're running too fast, using up energy, which is beyond our natural capacity, then what happens is parts of our sensitivity begin to shut down. First of all, it's just the emotional sense, people's empathy, people's sense of receptivity for each other begins to diminish when there's high stress, high pressure. Patience means willingness for it to take time. And certainly this is enormous practice because generally any time of the day for myself, things seem to be either going a bit too fast, and I have to be patient with myself, because I can't quite keep up with it, so I have to wait and take things in and let the understanding arise. Or things are going too slow. We're waiting. We're waiting. We do a lot of waiting in Sangha life. We wait for bells. If you live in community, that means you're waiting for the last person to arrive. The last person to arrive is worrying about being late, and the first person has to wait. Both people have to be patient with how it is. Not everybody can be here. Not everybody can be here at the same time. So everybody has to be patient. If you're the last, you've got to be patient. You just can't, cultivate. Then that brings us together. If we're all patient with each other and with the way it is, things don't happen instantly, then there's less stress, less frenzy, less irritation, and we live more harmoniously. And patience. Patient with one's moods. Patient with sickness. You go through days of it. Patient when you get moods and anxieties and depressions, and you just got to bear it. Patient with things going out of order, and bearing with it. It's enormously transcending quality. Because again, it works on our volition, which I want this, I want it now. I don't want it. I don't want to have to be with it for a moment. And that kind of pushing of volition doesn't cause the mind to open, it causes it to close down on deadlines, goals, my position, and so forth. So patience is a great opening. No, it's not my position, it's in harmony with how it is now. And that's going to be changing all the time. Truthfulness, a great virtue. Truthfulness with oneself. Veracity, authenticity. It obviously means telling the truth, but it also means being truthful about oneself, not creating fantasies or deluding oneself, recognizing one's weaknesses for what they are, shortcomings and limitations for what they are, and the shortcomings of others for what they are, not as permanent features, but things we have to acknowledge. We can't, the truth, we don't acknowledge it. We don't acknowledge it, we don't deal with it. We don't acknowledge our obsessions, our dislikes, we don't acknowledge them, we don't deal with them. If you don't deal with them, then the mind doesn't properly open. So it's pretty important to be honest, truthful, know what you're doing and why you're doing it. When the mind starts to come up with very long-winded, mysterious apologies and excuses for things, you're thinking, wait a minute, truth isn't that complicated. We've got a mind that's like a squid that shoots out a jet of ink while it scuttles backwards in order to not be seen. The mind can produce this fog of twisted ideas and notions and high-minded moods. You just recognize it as this is getting complicated and fuzzy and foggy. However mystical my language is, it's actually just hogwash. What happens? It's very simple. Do you like it or do you not like it? You want things or you do not want things? Object to something or do you favour it? Know where you're at. Okay, then I've got something to work with. this is certainly in in monastic life, we can come in all kinds of ideas, ideals, ascetic ideals, and ideals of tranquility, and ideals of sitting on lotuses or whatever. And but pretty soon the reality is you've got to come to terms with the fact of the karma, the habits, one's own habits, the habits of others, the way the mind cooks up struggles and inclinations and gets stuck, your own mind and that of others. The way that some things you see clearly, other people don't see clearly. Other things that other people see clearly, I don't see clearly. So we've got to kind of, open up to that and try to find, not get stuck in one's, but to acknowledge one's particular habits and tendencies. And you see it in the light of a community. Not even averse to it, you're just wakeful about it. And then sometimes years of working on particular tendencies and habits that take a long time to evaporate. You like fear and anxiety, which are not something you can just sort of get rid of. Self-hatred, self-aversion isn't something you can just suddenly snap your fingers and dispel with. You've got to recognise that tendency, be patient with it, know it for what it is, and stop blaming other people for it. Blaming yourself doesn't do any good. You just waken to it. It's like this. It's truthfulness. When you're truthful, you know it's like this. It makes one's habits into an object rather than personal definitions. This is my doubt. This is my nervousness. This is my irritation, or just the quality of irritation. The more truthful you get, the less self there is in what you experience. These are all valuable, but one parami is pretty much obvious, otherwise there are no parami at all. There's one called adhitthana, which means you resolve, you stay with it. Truth is a great idea, but to stay with it. Loving kindness is a great idea, great mood, but stay with it. Honesty, beautiful, stay with it. Stop exaggerating. Stay with that resolution to keep working on the places where one falls short. Without resolution, then there's no parami in anything. And generally what occurs in cultivation is you get a kind of a hope or a wish or an aspiration which seems great, and you pick it up, and then the struggle starts. At some point, oh well, this isn't working, or I've done enough of that, or what else, or whatever, and the mind starts wriggling. And then, I don't think this is not comfortable, this isn't getting anywhere, this is uncomfortable, this is boring, nobody else is doing it, I don't see the point of this, mind creates all kinds of reasons why to not sustain that. That's how it is. That's why these things are so powerful, because they begin to draw out the qualities of ignorance and grasping that we don't understand, we don't notice without it. Most of our suffering and stress and holding on is invisible, like the aspect of the iceberg that are beneath the ocean. We see a bit, we don't see all of it. And the parami, cultivating those, makes you suddenly aware of the rest of it. Certainly before I took on a life of disciplined life, I don't think I would have really got angry or depressed. Craving, a lot of craving didn't seem to happen. But certainly taking on a disciplined life, I got very angry and depressed. Not necessarily angry at anybody, just generally fed up and irritable. And where did that all come from? There was this sense of residual qualities that are latent, that don't arise because most of our life we're just coasting on the surface. And these parami take you deeper. And as you deepen, you go through the levels where there's obscurity that suddenly becomes apparent. This is where the depth starts. Depth starts as point of struggle, conflict, confusion. Yeah? So in training, when that coming into that process, the senses are just hold steady, and even if you're in this struggle, just begin to recollect and remember and bring to mind some of these other virtues. So can you just do a little bit? Can you do a little bit of dana? Can you do a little bit of, can you recollect your harmlessness? And one of the senior monks here, Lumpur, who came here last few days ago, Lumpur Jandi, said when he was training, you get to the point where you just cannot stand it in the monastery anymore, and you just got to go. And he'd be about to go, and somebody would say, "Couldn't you just wait 10 minutes?" He said, "Okay, I can do 10 minutes." He gets through 10 minutes. Can you do another 10 minutes? Yeah, I can do another 10 minutes. And just by doing 10 minutes, and another 10 minutes, another 10 minutes, to the wave of panic and pressure began to recede. Yeah? So this resolution, either through one's own efforts or through the advice of another, is tremendously helpful when we go through these murky passages of doubt, confusion, irritation, feeling the whole thing is a waste of time, boring place, isn't going anywhere useful, and so forth. All that. But you didn't go forth the place. You didn't go forth to be with other people. You went forth to open. And the opening means you're open to all of it. The grand, the ignoble, the confusing, boring. And then you open to it, those qualities of irritation and boredom and looking down on others or not valuing others begin to melt. You realize all these qualities which seem to be about the situation are just the residues of your own unawakened citta beginning to project onto the situation around you. Like demons. And only resolution, which doesn't mean you have to sit still for hours on end. It means you resolve to wake, to open, to challenge the movements of the mind. Challenge, question, to acknowledge, to question, to open to what the mind is doing. And if you're not so sure, just wait. Just wait. What the emotions are saying. Just hold steady. I came into training because I just realised I needed some discipline. I'm feeling I've been travelling, running. I really didn't know what to do with my life. I've been travelling around for quite a few years, and I just went through the whole thing: university, school, so forth, and travelling around. I don't know what. I got to eventually. I've gone to some meditation. Thought, hey, this is time to stop and check out what the mind's doing. So I thought, I better get some support for this, go to a monastery and, sit down. It's like a quiet, non-verbal voice says, it's time to sit. You think, okay, well, how long for? It's time to sit. Stay. Pretty soon, I don't want to stay here the rest of my life. Just stay. I could go out and do it. Just stay. What more for? Just stay. Just that. Just stay. And actually, it didn't mean even stay in that particular place. It meant stay at that place where the urges of the mind come running up, and you just don't follow it. Just hold balance. And what occurs is you begin to cultivate this parami with a quiet balance, firmness, resolution, which is not even an act of the will anymore, but an act of constant letting go. Subtle, imperceptible to others, but a constant recognition of the push, the pressure, the tugging of the emotions in the mind, and just softening, soft quality, but deep. It gives rise to a kind of lightness that is still very strong. And from this results of this, you two parami, loving kindness and equanimity, are the openings that enter into the relational realm. How we are with others. Metta, how we others in ourselves, because when the mind begins to discard its heaviness, its greyness, its irritability, its scorn, its ability to find fault with others, as these pressures recede, there's an opening to goodwill. And you think, well, why not? This is something. Is my goodwill dependent upon others being nice? That's not very profound, is it? Would the goodwill be not about whether I like somebody, but just I don't wish to pick up the quality of irritation, fear, contempt, criticism, comparisons. I don't wish to pick up those qualities. They do me no good. They do you no good. They're insidious, they creep in, and the mind closes down into position. I don't pick those up. The result is what? It's what we call goodwill, metta. It's a natural abiding place called a Brahma Vihara, measureless abiding place. We don't have to measure how much goodwill. Who's got more of it? It's not like that. It's the softness of the heart opening beyond its opinionatedness, its cantankerousness, and opening. This is the very quality of opening as an emotion. What awakening feels on the emotional level is a boundless quality of will. And equanimity, the last parami, is the opening to maintain serenity in the face of success, failure, praise, blame, being misunderstood, being valued, having things work, things breaking down. This opens up to a sense of fearless and unassailable strength, which is not a strength of holding on, but a strength of opening. And these are qualities that we can all tune into. But they're not, they're not Buddhist jargon. I mean, we can use Pali words for them, but everybody can recognize some of these. And the beauty of it is if you tune into any of them and you amplify it with resolution and you're clear about it with veracity and you're patient with it, then the others will always come on, will begin to flower. Right? When the lotus opens its petals, it doesn't just open one, it opens all 10. You lead with one and the others will follow. And that's how you cultivate. So now, this means there's plenty of room for practice, isn't there? In fact, the word practice becomes kind of redundant, really. It's not something I do. Sometimes I do it. Sometimes I just tune into it. I reflect upon it. Sometimes it's about not doing things. Sometimes it's about just receiving and open to what's going on. So all the qualities of the mind, for its actions, its receptivity, or it's just patiently bearing with, can all be exercised, penetrated and cleaned. And this is what causes it to open up into something beautiful. So this is a reflection for this evening, and offer this with goodwill.
So as I mentioned earlier, anybody wishing to stay will be practicing through until midnight. At the end, just before midnight, we'll do a little bit of chanting. If people are staying, then please, the hall is available for sitting meditation and standing meditation, but not walking meditation. Walking meditation done elsewhere, outside. And when we're coming and going in the hall, just continue mindfulness of how we move, moving quietly, softly, slowly. Try to maintain a sense of stillness in the hall. Also, anybody staying through, if we can all be back in the hall by 11:30, so that the last half hour is a relative stillness. And then once again, a reminder that if you're visiting here and you have a car on the monastery property, the driveway will be closed 15 minutes after midnight, so 12:15. These bollards appear, and your car will be inside if you don't get out before that. So, okay.